So good afternoon and good morning to those of you that have joined from overseas. My name is Melanie Pitsey and I'm the CEO of the Global Payroll Association. So thank you once again for joining us on today's webinar. The Payroll and HR Department holds valuable data, and today Ken Hertzler and Paul Wickens from ADP will be discussing this. Before we go any further, let's just go over some housekeeping rules. Please ask any questions you have in the question box. So we will have time at the end of today's webinar to answer any questions. This session is being recorded and will be available to watch after today's session, and the slides are also available. You may be able to actually download those from your control panel, which is on the right hand side of your screen. So let's introduce the speakers today. Ken, if you could move over to slide. Thank you very much. We've got Ken Hertzler. Ken, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Thanks, Mel. Yes, I'm Ken Hertzler. I work for ADP, managing our global product marketing organization. And one of the areas that we're currently focused on at ADP, of course, is global payroll and reporting mechanisms. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But my background includes over 30 years of experience in information technology and product development, product-related roles for all sizes of businesses. And before I joined ADP a number of years ago, I helped create value and successful exits for U.S. private and international equity firms as well, software technology, global firms, and cloud applications and tools. And I helped include exits to IBM, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and WorldPay. I very much look forward to talking about global payroll reporting today and the benefits that you will all receive with this technology. So, Mel?
Thanks, Ken. And over to you, Paul. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Paul Wickens. I'm a solutions consultant at ADP, and I work exclusively on ADP's global product range, so designed for multinational companies. And I'll be showing you some of the technology towards the end of the session.
Great, thanks, Paul. Okay, Ken, let's take it away.
Thanks, Mel. Yes, I'm looking forward to talking about global payroll reporting. And as HR roles become increasingly strategic and organizations are seeing HR as a source of usable data, we need to take a look at how to make this data work better for us. This data can be fed into analytics and reporting tools. They're becoming more and more important when making strategic decisions about your company and your workforce. And without the right data, you don't have the right insights. So how do you get the right data? Well, that's why we put together this webinar. It's called Reporting and Analytics. How do you turn your HR and payroll data into usable data? It seems as though the term data is the new oil has been around for a while now. In fact, the person who first said it is widely accepted to be the mathematician Clive Humby, who worked at Tesco's Club Card loyalty program. And he said it, in fact, back in 2006. Of course, back in those days when oil gushed out of the ground and transformed economies, we don't really think of it as we do today as a finite resource, a resource that, in fact, according to British Petroleum, will only last for another 50 years or so. And that's one big difference between oil and data. As Forbes pointed out, while oil is a finite resource, data is effectively an infinite, durable, and reusable resource. This means that treating it like oil, hoarding it and storing it in silos, has little benefit and reduces data's usefulness. So, how do we use and reuse data? Well, this webinar will look at how we get to those all-important insights to drive better decision-making when it comes to operational effectiveness. A recent McKinsey report that was titled Globalization and Transition, The Future of Trade and Value Chains, sees data rather than goods as the connective tissue of global economy. For companies now, like yours, to be competitive in a new global economy, you need to use your available data as effectively as possible. Multinational companies need to ensure that they can access and share data from their HR and multi-country payroll. Together, payroll and HR data is a powerful tool that can provide real insights and enable business leaders to make better business decisions. HR and payroll professionals in multinational companies are sitting on a gold mine of workforce information. The difficulty comes in trying to analyze it. But in fact, it shouldn't be a real problem. Going back to the same Forbes article that I quoted earlier, it goes on to say that oil requires huge amounts of resources, including oil itself, to be transported to where it's needed. Data, on the other hand, can be replicated indefinitely and move around the world at the speed of light at very low cost through fiber optic networks. So what's stopping us moving our HR and payroll data around? Perhaps the biggest problem is that these very systems that we've set up to run our payroll, that manages our data, that manages our HR information, the systems itself are likely the ones getting in the way. Many companies find themselves bogged down by an overwhelming complexity of tools, a mishmash of different HR and payroll systems, and nagging doubts about even the accuracy of the data, especially HR data. Yet they need to get answers from all their data if they're to be confident that you're making the right decision. Well, with that, I think we would like to take a poll and get your feedback on where do you already have reporting and analytics systems that consolidates your employee data from different countries. Hopefully that's being pushed out to you, and the poll is open. So I'll read it again. Do you already have a reporting and analytics system that consolidates your employee data from different countries? Yes, no, or perhaps we're planning to. Mel?
Yep, we've got 53% of you have voted. So let's try and get it over 70% if we can. We'll give it a few more seconds, if that's all right, Ken.
No problem. What kind of results are you getting? Maybe we can close it.
Yeah, quite interesting one. So yeah, we're over 75% now. So I'll just close the poll. And can you see the results, Ken?
Please help me out.
Okay, okay, the answers are yes, 36%, no, 45%, and we are planning to deploy one, 19%.
So about a third of you are saying you have a way to analyze your data. Well, that means more than 2/3 or about 2/3 of you don't. And I'm glad you're here. For those that could get analytics data, I've got some ideas of how you might be doing that, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. And then there are some things that perhaps you can even take it further, which I'll talk about.
Okay, I'll hide the results for you.
Thank you. Perfect. So what's the problem? The problem starts with the number 32. This is the average number of payroll systems and vendors that multinational firms have to deal with. Yeah, there are a lot of payroll systems out there. And if you're a multinational company, and as we've taken in the survey, 32 systems, that is a lot of disconnected payroll systems, and that's a lot of employee data that's sitting out in different systems. How in the world do you pull all that together? Add to that the various different systems that you have for the HR function, which might also include different admin systems, different time management systems, different talent systems, and multiple data reporting analytics. You have a rather complicated knot of software applications. You may have added applications as they were needed, of course, in each of the countries that you have employees, and you may have even been confident that you were buying the best applications in that country for that job in hand. But the reality is likely to be that these systems are not able to connect together. They're disparate, and they're hiding and separating the data that you need around employees rather than bringing it together for analysis and allowing you to see a bigger picture. Separate payroll systems make it difficult. In fact, some cases, depending on the systems you're using, impossible to know exactly what's working, when, and where. Without a single system of record, you're likely to encounter inputting errors and a delay in information being updated, information such as salary data, of course, promotions, overtime pay, may not be as easily able to access, and there will always be doubts, in fact, about sometimes its accuracy, depending on which data it is. Separate systems make the life more difficult for everyone, including managers throughout your company who want to complete reports, but the main burden actually falls also on HR and payroll departments. Over half of the organizations believe that weak data and analytics capabilities in their HR IT systems are holding you back. Your ability to make use of the analytics, the hidden gems that are inside that data. And it's difficult enough for HR with teams perhaps having to learn new skills around different reporting systems, different time systems, different HR management systems, and they haven't needed it previously. The most important starting point for your global reporting is a single system of record. It's vital that you have one version of the truth. You need to know the truth about what's going on in different parts of your organization. You need visibility into your data. You need a global payroll solution that's simple and scalable to unify payroll processing across multiple countries. A solution that offers centralized reporting in order to consolidate, to assemble, to put your data together, and to be able to get information that could help your company make better decisions, and to save you money and to even make more money, no matter where your employees work. Once you have a single system of record providing regularly updated and accurate data that can be shared in real time, all kinds of new opportunities can open up to you in reporting and analytics. The fact that most organizations would like to do more with their payroll data and analytics is borne out in our research, as you can see on the screen. But many rely on their payroll service providers for their reporting and are disappointed often with the results. They're just reports. And nearly all organizations still rely on, guess what, Microsoft Excel. And perhaps the third of you who said yes to that previous poll, many of you, I'm sure, are using Excel to collect your data around the world and to try to assemble it together to get your HR and payroll analytics. Yeah, Microsoft Excel is a great and useful tool. I use it myself in many different ways, and it's very difficult to create useful reporting dashboards from it. Obviously, the data is static, it's not dynamic, it's a snapshot. And in fact, you can also make mistakes as you move data, import, and assemble it together and put it together. And often, of course, you're coming from disparate systems where the data fields don't always match, and you got to manipulate data around and move columns around and finally normalize the data across all the different systems in order to get those Excel results that you need. But it's not the tool that's going to put analytics at the heart of your HR and payroll system. It's really about the data, and it's the data decisions that we need to be making. HR systems are in fact important, but don't overlook payroll. Only when payroll and HR systems inform each other will you have truly effective data. Deloitte found that although over half of multinational organizations have got the message about processing payroll from a single location, 12% still process payroll separately in different countries, usually using disparate systems that don't communicate with each other. Guess what? You go to file transfer, and that's how you can consolidate the data. But file transfers are very error-centric and also not necessarily compatible. Deloitte also found that companies are increasingly using cloud-based solutions for their payroll, which is great. You get the data online, access through the internet, through safety protocols, keep your data safe. And the number of companies processing payroll in the cloud jumped, in fact, from 14% to 39% in just the last 3 years. Cloud solutions are the answer, of course, to sharing accurate information, but payroll data is the critical part. It's the imperative that it's right. Yet only 60% of employee data required to run payroll is contained in the HR system. Now you got payroll systems and separate from the HR systems. Tighter integration is needed. Otherwise, if you change your data in your payroll, that common data needs to also change in your HR system too. That takes time, that takes money, and of course, it's expensive to maintain those integrations. Payroll is such a crucial part of controlling your labor expenses, overhead costs, and profit margins. If you don't have a clear view of your outgoings, how can you expect to plan against budget? You need to optimize labor costs, stay on budget, make informed decisions that support your business strategy with confidence that comes from real-time employee data. Your reporting solution should allow you to access a variety of dynamic standard reports, analytic reports, as well as interactive dashboards, dynamic data, data connected right to the database, not imported, exported, or consolidated, helping your HR, payroll, and finance teams to identify employee data and cost trends. It should enable you to create an ad hoc reports to gain specific insights into your employees. And it should meet compliance goals and protected by security and data protections, giving different users the right of access to the right data at the right time, depending on their role. Well, with that, Mel, I think it's time for another poll. I'll let you get that set up and going, but I'll read the poll out. What are the most common challenges you face when consolidating data?
Okay, that's been launched.
What are the most common challenges you face when consolidating data?
Okay, 50% have voted so far.
Great. And we've got 4 answers there to pick from just to make it easy so that we can get some analytical results for all of you to benefit from.
Great. I think we'll just leave it a few more seconds. Okay, I'll close the poll. And the results are confidence in data accuracy 31%, need for manual data reconciliations 55%, poor user experience 8%, and security 6%.
Case in point, most of you are doing manual methods in order to get your data reconciled, well over 50% there. So that is exactly what I'm talking about in the kinds of problems that you're facing. So I'd like to switch from talking about the problems that come from disparate systems and data to some solutions. It really comes down to some software reporting tools, and there are payroll reporting tools available that meet the need for real-time reporting. So you can now know what's happening at any time. Let me talk about them. First of all, these tools can give you real-time access to master data, payroll results, postings, and time clusters, giving you full organizational management. And you shouldn't need to be a computer programmer as well, or an analyst, to be able to run this data and to analyze your data. You should be looking for a friendly, easy-to-use interface that makes it easy to concentrate on what you want from the solution, not how to use the solution. You should be able to build your own reports. You should be able to have a large number of pre-written reports that you can pick from to also save you time. You should be able to analyze your employee data across countries and regions with a unified currency of your choice and share reports with colleagues in other departments. Yes, you should be able to combine payroll data with other workforce information, including timekeeping data, and to be able to improve future strategic HR and talent decisions, such as performance evaluations, compensation adjustments, or even your recruiting. ADP Global Payroll can do and offer a variety of reporting solutions with different formats, from tabular to exportable to PDF reports and analytics, which allow you to consolidate and drill down on the data and dashboards to give you instant, understandable visual representation of the data. Global Payroll Insights Dashboard is the product that we would like to show you today. It can provide you metrics right out of the box, and they are configured. It can be configured for different roles in your organization. You can pull information from multiple systems, even disparate payroll systems and countries, into one single source. And we can give you a global perspective on labor spend, workforce costs, timekeeping issues, all of which will help you drive your strategic HR and talent decisions with appraisals, compensation, and recruiting. One of the holistic analytics and reporting tools can get you a firm understanding of what is really happening throughout your organization, and it is the ADP Global Insights Dashboard. And that tool can bring together payroll, HR, and time data. It can allow you to make the right decisions, take the right actions. It can help you move nimbly by managing your global workforce to act faster with greater confidence. For example, let me just list a few things. You can view your global payroll data broken down by workforce costs, gross wages, employer contributions, and employee deductions. You can also get a view of your global employees, such as employee counts, new hires, leavers, seniority, and age. And you can get an understanding of your employees' time data to find cost savings using metrics such as total hours by country, overtime hours by country, total absence by country, and total absence by versus total hours. Those are just a few examples of the kind of data that you can get so that you can make decisions. With this information, you can discover, in fact, the trends in those countries where you have more employees and they're paid overtime so that you can see productivity trends. You can access employee details by country, find patterns of gender and employee parity that you may want to address in each country, especially if you have compliance and regulatory requirements in these areas. You can provide your finance team with tangible trends and data so that you can implement your HR policies. Finance may, in fact, need this kind of data to forecast current and future employee costs, new hires, termination, severance, overtime, or you may need it to remain compliant with the local employment laws. Well, that's what you can do with ADP Global Insights Dashboard. I think now it might be time that we give you an opportunity to see the product itself. And what I would like to do is hand this over to Paul, and he's going to show you the product and give you a presentation. Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
We are good. I can see it.
You see me and you hear me. Excellent. Thanks very much. Yes, I just wanted to take about 15 minutes to introduce you to Insight Dashboards, to ADP Insight Dashboards, and that's what you see on the screen now. The first thing you can see is it is multi-country. I've got about 8 countries in my demo database here, but this could cover up to a little over 140 countries that ADP can support from a payroll and time management perspective. So it's a very broad scope. But the idea is we're bringing very granular payroll data together into this really easy to use format, really nice graphics and analytics tools to let everyday employees create the kind of reports that they want to. And really quick to implement. This is effectively an out-of-the-box solution that sits on top of our payroll services. It is designed to be super easy to use, and hopefully you'll see that as I go through the presentation. The idea is that you can produce quite sophisticated analytics without having to come back to ADP or other vendors to get those reports created for you. The default is to go in on what we call the payroll dashboards that there is in here, and we've already mentioned it, but there are payroll, HR, and time metrics, and I will briefly go into all of these through the session. It is multi-country, so it's important that we have currency conversion tables so that finance and the other teams can get the information in the format that they need. And it's also, I'll call it multi-period, but you can look at particular periods, you can look across timelines, you can do trend analysis and things like that. And again, I'll show you some of that as we go through. There's effectively 2 roles supported within the tool. One is just the sort of end user, somebody who needs information, they want to consume information, and they want to be able to do that in an easy to understand method. And really that's what I'm going to be showing you through the session. But there is another type of, perhaps call them a super user. There's somebody who can map the underlying data elements together into the appropriate sort of buckets, I'll call them, change labels to reflect your own business language, distribution of reports and the kind of management of that as well is all available behind the scenes. So let me drill in a little bit more to some of the features here. So this is looking at by country. This is total workforce cost, So this is gross plus employer on costs. This is pure gross, so we'd have this information before payroll ran. Employer contributions, so social insurances and taxes that our employers are paying, deductions, etc. And these are standard supplied metrics, but as you'll see, one of the key features of the tool is to allow users to create their own analysis, very specific for individual managers, either who might be looking at one country or across multiple countries. The filters are important. So we're looking at this by country at the moment, but I could look at it by legal entity. Clearly, that's going to be pretty key for some people. By region, yeah, it obviously depends how you manage the business, how finance and payroll are structured, how you'd want to look at this data. But all the kind of options to slice and dice that are really included here. I'm going to stick with country, though, for the rest of the session. You've also got the filters. So if I just wanted to look at the Great Britain, say, then that's easy to set up. And of course, that could actually be applied by the authorization roles as well. Again, very easy just to make your selections. And absolutely no real need to have an understanding of, the way the data is structured, any type of coding or anything like that. Let me have a look at a bit more detail into some of these analytics. So these little rectangles along the top here, just little highlights really, just telling you what's happened compared to previous periods. So they're just little snippets of information, but quite interesting, and it might be an indicator that then gets you to move on and to drill down into some of this in a bit more detail. Let me show you, I'm going to look at this one, total gross. I think we all understand that. Let me just make this a little bit bigger. So we've got the total gross by country. Again, just hover over to see a bit of the detail. Some of the things that I can do, if I want to be a bit more granular, then I can click subcategory. And then here on the little colored icons, you can see we've got salary, allowances, overtime, etc. So I'm now seeing in a lot more detail how that total gross is made up. Salary clearly is the single biggest element, but if I wanted to look at the other items in a bit more detail, it's really straightforward to take salary out. In fact, I just click on it, and now I've got a lot more information about the other elements that are making up that gross. The purple one is overtime. Well, there's a purpley pink, I'm not sure. And actually, in compared to the overall gross figures, the overtime in China is very significant. So it might be that I want to drill into that in a bit more detail. So if I click on there, again, very straightforward, just a simple click. This is actually pulling quite a lot of granular data back, so it takes a few seconds. And now we're into the real granular data that lies behind this tool. And just seeing this, it makes you appreciate, I think, really how useful some of those graphics can be, because you can imagine there is a lot of data being produced by payroll. It's at employee level, so we've got an employee here. But obviously doing it through the graphical view, it's much more straightforward to get a feel for the trends and what's really going on, rather than having to look at this level of detail. Nonetheless, at times you probably will want to get into this level of detail, and that's why this information is here. So it's at employee level, and it's actually down at individual wage element level. So we can see the different wage elements and the amounts. There are actually some tools in here. You can begin to manipulate this data directly within the tool. You can also share it, export it if that's appropriate. But I'll come on to some of the more kind of ad hoc ideas a little later on. But you saw how easy it was to go from, really seeing global total gross, seeing some impact of overtime in a particular country, and being able to drill down into the very specific granular detail that made up those figures. Let me turn the subcategories off. And this time I will check the trend line. So this is, you want to see how things are moving over time, or you want to compare periods. And often that's a fundamental control for payroll and finance people, have things, what's happened between this period and a historical period. And this, again, it's very, very quick to see that, in fact, the vast majority of my countries, total gross in this case is hardly changing. But for the US, and again, you can just hover over, we've gone from just under 700,000, 820, to a little over 1 million over the period of just 3 months. So it's a fairly significant increase. Now, I can drill into that data, of course, begin to try and work out why that's happening. But at this point, I don't know. Was it just salary costs? Sorry, was it just wage inflation, potentially? Was a hiring more people, or was a hiring moving from less experience to more experience? Those things I don't necessarily know just from viewing the chart here. But I'll come on to that and some of the things we can help with that analysis in a few minutes. But that takes me on quite nicely to HR. So, excuse me while I have a sip of water. So primarily we're talking about payroll data. But of course, payroll is almost certainly the most accurate store of information that you have within the business. And we know, if we're paying people, we know exactly how many people we're paying. We know how many new hires there were this period or this year. We know how many leavers there have been. We know birth dates, so we know seniority. So there's actually, although we're not an HCM, we can be, but we're not necessarily the HCM platform. Most of our global clients do have some sort of HCM platform. But nonetheless, we can provide these kind of analytics within Insight dashboards. And those can also be incorporated with the payroll data. Importantly, not all clients, in fact, a surprising number of our clients, I work with some of the biggest and best, most famous companies in the world, and it's surprising how many still don't have a truly global HCM platform. So some of them actually find that these HR metrics are actually more accurate and certainly speedier to access than their HR systems. The reason I wanted to come into here, we saw that salary, the salary costs were increasing in the US. So let's have a look at that in a bit more detail. So let me filter on the US. Just apply that. So now I'm just looking, I've got employee count for the US. Let me do a trend on that. And this will be for the same period. This is March to May this year. And yes, you can see that the headcount has gone up, fairly significantly during that 3-month period. So that may account for the increase in the wage rises. Of course, it might not totally. Again, that's something we could drill into in a little bit more detail. On the seniority side, clearly this must be a pretty new business because there are not many people with much seniority. So if you're a new business, that's fine, isn't it? But obviously, if you've been in business a long time, that's something perhaps that HR should be aware of. Let me move on to the time analytics. Payroll was always all about values, amounts of currency. The time section is all about hours. So hours worked, hours absent, etc. Again, you've got these sort of quick insights. So total hours worked has gone up on the previous period. We've got total hours by country. Overtime, absolutely crucial one, and you'll hear me talk about overtime a lot, both from the payroll and the time perspective, something that is close to many companies' hearts as a significant cost, and something that they potentially have control over if they understand where that overtime is being worked. Total absence, and also some ratio information. So this is absence against total hours. So some different kind of perspective on things here. Let me look at this in a little bit more detail as well. So here we've split up those hours into different types. And again, I'll take out regular work. This will let me view the other categories in a little bit more detail. And again, overtime is taking up a lot of that. Now, why is that? Let me take the categories off and trend it again. And this might just be standard, we might, but for the business, oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I picked the wrong one. Let me pick overtime. Let me do this full screen and trend analysis on overtime. So we've gone from 10,000 hours, 11,000, nearly up to 15,000. So overtime hours has gone up by pretty much 50% in the space of a couple of months. Now, obviously, that's costing the business a lot of money. Again, what you can't tell from this is, was that due to extra demand? Is that a seasonal thing? That needs other input to it, but it gives us a basis from which to work and investigate. And actually, what might be interesting is if I just change this back, if we look for a whole year, so let's look from June. And yeah, kind of interesting, it's kind of, we've got this sort of seasonality, it looks like, and then it has been creeping up. So, well, not creeping up, jumping up. So this is definitely something that I want to investigate. And you've seen me already do that. I can drill in. I can see which employees are taking the most. Is it within a particular department, a particular manager? You can go from this high level overview really quickly and easily into the detail and really find out what is happening behind the scenes. Just a couple of other things to finish off with. So the whole idea of this, although you've seen me, so far I've just been playing or using the predefined dashboards, but there's some great ad hoc tools in here. And the idea is very much that you would go in and build the reports and the graphs and things that you need for your management team. This is just a quick example of the UK one. So we've just got a couple of reports. Don't know why I've got. Yeah, so it's really just not particularly these reports. It's just to show that the idea is that you build up a sort of dashboard for particular users, particular types of users in particular countries or regions, or even global. So they have one place that they would come into initially, and they can really quickly see a highlight of all of the key metrics that are of interest to them. So that's really what the dashboards are for. And just quickly, I think I've got enough time. Now, all of this reporting capability is really great. Where the most complex thing, though, is getting that data together in the first place. So the power that ADP are bringing to this is that across, as I say, up to 145 countries where we can support payroll, we can bring all of that data in. We map it, we standardize it, we allow those kind of visualization tools, and it's really that data management that is the clever part. This is kind of the icing on the cake, if you like, being able to do this kind of reporting. And this is the last part, which is the ad hoc section. And one of the things we do is we split the data out. You can see we've got HR, payroll, time, and you'll see we've got employee level and aggregate. So when I hover over, I see all of the fields that are available. So if I do it on the wage type aggregate, you don't see employee or employee number there. So what this means is that you could let, for instance, finance people have access to the aggregate and they wouldn't be able to see employee level salary information. So this is quite important in terms of roles and authorizations. I'm going to pick this one to start with. These are the fields I have available. I'm going to take a couple out that I don't really need. And I'm just going to do a very quick, simple one, but it gives you an idea for how easy it is to set these up. And again, the concept is that you would generate these, put them into the appropriate dashboards, push those out to the relevant managers, and all of that in a sort of self-service environment. The formulas I won't bother with, but we'll add a filter. So this is on wage categories, and let's say I wanted to compare bonuses across countries. And then just represent that in a chart, because there's still quite a lot of data there, you can see. We'll go for a pie chart. I think we'll just leave it at that. And there we go, simple as that. And then, you can hover over and it will tell you the exact detail. So yeah, very, very easy. That obviously is a pretty simple example. You can do cross tabs and all sorts of things in here. So a very sophisticated tool. That's all I wanted to show. Hope that gives you a feel for what it's capable of. Totally granular information behind the scenes, but a really nice, easy to use tool to really dissect that data and to bring insights and hopefully to let you make ultimately better business decisions, of course. So back to my team.
Thanks, Paul. Great. We'll just wrap up now. So hopefully, as you've seen, we've been able to turn the data into usable data, and you can go a step further and drill down, and lots of flexibility going forward. Now it's time to turn your raw data into something. So we want to help you to turn your complex data into a tool like this. And we're happy to dive deeper into the data sets going forward. But before we go to a couple of questions, just to kind of wrap up, I do want to do one more quick poll. So Mel, if you want to help me, we'll just do one last poll to get some final answers and some feedback. And the question is, if you don't currently have a comprehensive analytics and reporting platform, how quickly would you like to have one effectively? So we've got 4 answers here to give you some guidance on what we're looking for in terms of timelines and time effort. You can go ahead and fill that out. Mel, you can.
Yep, that's launched. Yeah, we'll just wait a few more seconds for people to fill in their answers.
You don't currently have a comprehensive analytics and reporting platform. How quickly would you like to deploy one? How are we doing with the results? We're about there, Mel?
Just a few more seconds. Do you know have you got a feeling of what's going to be the highest?
We get a mix when we ask clients on their timelines, but typically they all want one. It's just a matter of their own internal systems that kind of drive the timelines. So it can vary. I'm expecting some kind of mix here.
There certainly is. So I'll close the poll. Okay. And I'll share the results. Okay, so 8% is within 1 month, 15% between 1 to 3 months, 26% between 3 to 6 months, and 51%. There's no urgency. After 6 months is fine.
Yeah, so that's about 50% are in kind of like, let's get it going, and 50% we need to evaluate, which is not surprising based on what I was kind of guessing the results might be. So, but almost 10% of you need something now. It's an issue, and so I think that would bring us kind of to the next step, which is to help you. And we'll put up this number as well as our website again, but I do want to say that we're happy to talk with you about this and with your ADP rep, and they'll be happy to answer these questions about global payroll solutions and this level of global reporting. Let's go to maybe a question or two, Mel. Do we have time for that, or where are we at?
Yeah. We have slightly overrun, but I think we've got time for a couple of questions. So, Ken, the first one over to you. We've produced a consolidated payroll report each month by combining our various country payroll runs into Excel. What makes your approach better for reporting?
So I briefly covered this in my talk, but obviously the problems with consolidating multiple data sources into Excel is that not all the global payroll or not all the payroll engines in your various countries have the same data schemas or data structures. And therefore, when you bring that data into Excel, you have to sort of rearrange the fields. Perhaps some countries don't have certain fields, other countries have extra fields because of various compliance and regulatory requirements, and it just makes it really complicated to bring it in. Not to mention the fact that the data is static. It's a snapshot, so you don't have that dynamic approach that Paul was showing in the demo. So our approach is better for dynamic data as it changes. It's better because you don't have the complexities of the different data schemas and formats that are coming in. And of course, we have built all the tools just like you would see in Excel as part of the Insights dashboard.
Thanks, Ken. And before we wrap it up, Paul, I have one question for you. Does Insights dashboard products that you demoed able to run updated payroll reports each time another country runs their payroll? In other words, is the data dynamic or static?
Yeah, the data is dynamic. So, and there is a mix of data in there. Of course, there's gross data and there's net figures. The net figures we can only get after payrolls have run, but gross figures we can update as and when. So no, it is a dynamic ongoing database.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll finish now. We do have a few more questions that have actually come through, but what we'll ensure is that they are answered sort of post webinar. So I'd just like to say thank you to everyone that has joined today, and thank you, Ken and Paul, for sharing your expertise. If you want to know more, contact ADP. A representative will be get back in touch with you. They're happy to answer any questions that you have. The best number to call is 0800 1707 677. So again, numbers 0800 1707 677. If you'd like to ask any questions post webinar, feel free to contact me at melanie@globalpayrollassociation.com. But thank you all once again for joining us this afternoon.